Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to the FIDE Candidates in 2024 that's going on now in Toronto in Canada. We're now in the round 4 of this amazing chess tournament, and before the round 4 the leaders of this event were the top grandmasters Fabiano Caruana, Jan Nepomniachtchi and Gukish. All of them had so far 2 draws and 1 win so far. I think also they played the most solid chess, the best chess, also a well prepared chess, and of course for the continuation of the tournament I think also they're now the top favorites to win the whole thing. Especially I think Jan Nepomniachtchi was playing always great in the candidates. He also won the last 2 candidates, had I think a bad luck also in his World Chess Championship matches, but as I said, Jan Nepomniachtchi is a guy that's always a favorite to win the whole thing, and today I think he had a great chance against Vidit S.Gujrathi to maybe expand also his lead, to maybe make an impact now so far in the early stage of this prestigious chess tournament. So let's see now what happened. We have here Jan Nepomniachtchi versus Vidit S.Gujrathi. The game finished a couple of minutes ago. Really crazy things happened all over the board. So with the white pieces, Jan opened with the move e4. Vidit's response was e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to b5. The Ruy Lopez, the Spanish game, is on the board, and now we have the amazing Berlin defense with the move knight to f6. Castling by Jan, we have knight takes e4 with the Rio Gambit accepted. Now we have d4, of course. What Jan is trying to do is to open the e-file and of course endanger the king, because black needs at least 2 more moves in order to secure the king by castling. So that's why knight to d6, standard line. We have now bishop takes c6, d takes c6, and now after d takes e5, knight to f5, I think we have reached the most common and most often played line of the Berlin defense. And let's talk about strategies here. When we always watch now the pawn structure here, we have now a 4 versus 3 pawn majority. Of course, black has also a certain 4 versus 3 pawn majority, but the double pawn structure is something that bothers always black in the continuation of the game. It's very hard for black to create a pass pawn, so it's easier for white to create a passer with this clear 4 versus 3 situation on the king side. So that's why I think that's from an endgame's perspective a bad setup here for black. Although black has the beautiful bishop pair on the board, but from a strategic point of view, if the game reaches the fully endgame stage, white can always advance the pawns on the king side. We have now queen takes d8, king takes d8, still we're in the standard line, knight to c3 by Nepo, and now after bishop to d7, h3, still also a very often played line in chess history. We have h6, we have g4, kicking with the knight drops back, and now comes already a theoretical novelty here by Jan Nepomniachtchi, which is, I think, not a surprise or something. This is not, I think, a sort of a novelty that spices up the game unnecessarily, and then you get maybe a slightly worse position, but you want to surprise your opponent. I think this idea by Nepo is perfectly fine, because he's relying simply on his 4 versus 3 pawn majority on the king side and wants simply to push f4. Why no one played this line before, I'm not sure, because in my opinion it's even the most logical line here that Jan Nepomniachtchi is playing. So we have now g5. You see, Vidit is trying to battle against this potential f4 move. If that would have happened, then the pawns of white would have a certain pawn mobility, would have a flexibility. It would be very hard to stop them, but Nepo continues with this pressure, f4. He's saying, that's my side, that's the side where I'm better. I'm not stopping to attack you here. I have to do something fast on this side of the board. We have g takes f4, bishop to f4. Here, of course, certain ideas like knight to g6 could work, bishop to g3, but you have then problems here around the square f7. You have to protect it. Then the knight is coming maybe on dark squares on the board, so very tough position then to defend for black. After bishop to f4, we have bishop to e6 by Vidit, knight to e4, targeting still the f6 weakness. We have now b6. You could maybe try here to play bishop to g7, maybe to control the f6 square, but this square can be occupied anyway, and I think white can even continue with this kind of a plan. Knight to f3, maybe reroute the knight, maybe even, if the position allows it, occupy the f5 weakness, getting the rook into the game, getting the support of the e-pawn, getting it maybe on the d-file, on the e-file. So I think it's much easier to play now this game from white's perspective, although the engine gives here always about equal chances for both sides. So okay, this is just a computer evaluation, but from a human point of view, I would always love to play now this game from white's perspective. I think the moves that you have to play are more natural and are easier to find. I think black is always the one that has to find the most specific solutions, the most specific solutions of tactical and positional problems. So that's why, as I said, nothing complicated that I think so far Nepo is playing. He's saying, I have your weaknesses on f6, I have maybe also your weak pawn on f7, so very tough to defend the position here for black. b6, we have knight to f3 by Nepo. c5, of course, black is trying to do something here, but as I mentioned, very hard to create a passer. It's much easier for white to maybe somehow get a breakthrough here, maybe with the e-pawn. We have knight to f6 by Nepo, okay, of course, occupying the main strategic weakness in black's camp. We have king to c8, king to g2, king to b7, castling by hand here, sort of by Vidit Santosh Gujrathi. We have king to g3, and this is also a good strategy by Nepo, because this game is not so far away from reaching maybe the fully endgame stage. And when we reach the fully endgame stage, you want, of course, to play with your king. So that's why getting the king closer to the action is a perfect idea. The king, I think, could not be endangered here by any of black's pieces. So although it's a little bit exposed, but the queens are off the board, the game is not so complicated. Very good strategic move here, as I said, to move the king towards the center and also towards black side of the board. We have a5, a3, a4, rook from a to d1, occupying the only open file. Black doesn't have the rook connection, still cannot compete on the d file. Again, also strategic disadvantage here for black. Again, I'm pointing out the engine gives here 0.0 evaluation, but as I said, it's certain feeling here for me that, as I said, very hard to defend now this position for black. We have knight to c6, c3, controlling the d4 square, bishop to e7, and now a very nice move here by Nepo, knight to h4, allowing even here bishop to f6. This wasn't played in the game by Vidit here, but here Nepo shows that he has everything well calculated here, because after maybe e takes f6 and you're trying maybe to compete here on the e file, on the d file you cannot compete, because after rook to d8, you could maybe lose this one. If you take with the knight, then the knight is again a little bit on the passive side. If you try to compete maybe on the e file, there is also a beautiful idea, and I'm sure that Nepo saw that then this would come. Knight to f5 seems so that actually white has now structural disadvantage, has this double pawn structure now on the f file. But look how bad this knight would be if this position would have been reached. Look at this. The knight would be simply out of game. No good squares for the knight. You could maybe try to reroute it somewhere. Maybe you can get it even to b3, but from that square, again, you don't have any chances. So great really idea here by Nepo. I'm really sure that he has calculated everything and that he noticed the strategic disadvantages of the knight in this particular position. Now there is still this clear target. We can occupy the 7th rank. We can occupy, maybe if the knight leaves here, we can even occupy the e7 weakness. So many positional problems here. So that's why I had to really expose this move as a great move here by Nepo, because he doesn't care if you want to take out the knight on f6, because he has a clear target again, the weakness in white's position, the weak f5 square. So here h5 played by Vidit. We have g5. Nepo is passing through, and what he's trying to do is also to play g6. After f takes g6, knight to g6, then the e pawn would be a pass pawn. Very important from an endgame's perspective. Again, that's what I've talked about in the beginning. Much easier for white to create something on this side of the board. You see, black never made any progress here. But as I said, again, the engine likes both positions. If black plays also the game correctly, the engine says this is perfectly fine position for black. Now comes rook to a5. Good idea here by Vidit. Vidit plays now a beautiful counter play on the queen side, is targeting, of course, the b2 weakness. We have rook from d to e1, rook to b5, and now bishop to c1. You see how Nepo kept his rook connection, managed to reroute the bishop, and the bishop stays still active on this diagonal, but protects also the b2 square. Really nice positional play by Nepo. Really nice maneuvers with his pieces. And now comes the first critical moment, I think, of this particular game. Here, Vidit had the opportunity to maybe even force, I will not say completely drawish position, but this was the must move. that he had to play, attacking simply the e5 pawn. That's the way to go, because white wants to play g6, as I mentioned, and after something like, I don't know, knight to e5, the problem, of course, here for black seems that white could break the position with the move g7. But actually, what you should do now is to play simply bishop to f6. If, for instance, here g takes h8, promotion happens, then you have bishop to h8, and the engine says here, this is a perfect position for black. Actually, black should be even better here with this pawn. Finally, with the bishop pair, with solving all of the tactical problems, and also you see the bishop would be stuck here to the protection of the pawn on b2. The engine gives here 2.5 evaluation in black's favor. So in this particular line, of course, after bishop to f6, white doesn't have to take the rook here on h8. Can of course also play rook to f6, but then rook to g8, I think, solves all of the positional problems. Bishop to h6, then you go with knight to d3. This one is hanging, and again, I think a defendable position for black. Unpleasant maybe to handle this pawn on g7, but it's perfectly fine. Black has also great activity with the rook, with the centralized knight. Then of course can also get the king closer if necessary. So this was the way to go, and this was actually also the suggested line by the Stockfish engine. But after bishop to c1, what Vidit played, he played rook to b3. He didn't attack the e5 pawn, and now Nepo is saying, show me what you got, show me what you're going to do now. g6, great move. F takes g6, knight to g6, attacks the rook, you have to step back. But as I said, now comes the problem of the passer on the e file, and what you did with the move rook to b3, actually with this move, Vidit locked out his rook. Now the rook is now far away from the action. The rook is simply out of game, totally out of game here. Rook to, after rook to d8, we have knight to e7. As I said again, very easy to find now the best next moves for Nepo. Knight to e7, knight takes h5, Nepo grabs another pawn. Okay, Vidit can get it back in with this tactical sequence that he of course played, but now e6, the pawn is marching, the rook is out of game, the pieces are close enough to the action, and also what's very important, the king is close enough to the action. Now 4 pieces are supporting the passer on the e file. Very tough now, the position to defend here for Vidit Santosh Gujrathi. b5, he's of course trying to do something. b4, he's noticing of course that the king is lined up on the 3rd rank. There are maybe some tactics, but Nepo is keeping it calm. Bishop to g5, hits simply the knight, pushes the pawn further. Bishop to d7 has to be played. e8, the promotion immediately here for Nepo would not be good. Nepo didn't play that, of course, because after bishop to e8, rook to e8, then after rook to b2, okay, you're up a piece, but black has a compensation in 2 pawns, has now here possibility maybe to trade off everything, and with still 1 minor piece and with the rook on the board, this should be, I think, a thematic draw. So that's why Nepo played the correct move. He played rook to d1, attacks simply the knight. King gets closer. We have king to e4. Nepo gets out of this tactical mess on the 3rd rank, but also is attacking now here the knight on d5. But now Vidit didn't react correct. He had to play on this idea that we have talked about. He had to play again the same pattern. Knight to e7, bishop to e7, and rook takes b2. And then you battle. And still, of course, we cannot say white is better here, but you're in the game still. You can battle, you can play some tactics, you can play some checks. I think if Vidit would have played this move, that the game would end in a draw in top GM level. I think this is a realistic scenario. But after king to e4, what Vidit did, he played now bishop to e8. He hoped, okay, I'll take out the knight, and we have then opposite color bishops. Opposite color bishops many times lead into drawish position. But the Nepo played the beautiful rook to d5, doesn't care, bishop to h5, and here after bishop to c1 comes the problem. You have to now somehow defend the e8 square. The rook is controlling the king cannot get closer. We have bishop to g6 by Vidit. We have king to e5, the king is getting closer. Now we have b4, but this move b4 comes a little bit too late, because now Nepo played, I think, the most beautiful move of this particular game. Maybe just for fun, if you want, pause the video and try to see now the winning idea here for white. Okay, the winning idea here is the stunning king to f6. This is the way to go. Because if you play, of course, king to d5, we'll simply take, and you're far away from the pawn gets promoted. After king to f6 here, Vidit tried bishop to e8, but now rook to d8, attacking the bishop, and here b takes a3 was played by Vidit. He's trying to do something, of course, on this queenside, but the rook is simply far away from the action. So after b takes a3 here, Vidit tried bishop to d7, but nothing is working here. King to f7, calm move by Jan Nepomniachtchi, and now even king to d5. Blunder still in the end, but nothing can be done. Even if you take, we simply take out this one. You don't have a control of the e3 square. You cannot get the rook into the game. So this is game over here for Black. Fair design here by Vidit Santosh Gujrathi. So great game by Jan Nepomniachtchi. He has now 2 wins and 2 draws in the first 4 games. Now he is heated. He is the top favorite to win the whole thing. Crazy Berlin defense. He destroyed it with great tactics. But we have seen Vidit had some counterplay. Maybe he missed some tactics in the middle game stage. But as I said, also in our analysis, it's much harder for Black to find good moves in this types of position. And we have to say it also, Vidit was low on clock. So tough position to defend against Jan Nepomniachtchi, deserved winner, of course, of this round 4. Now we'll see what will happen. Someone has to, of course, now catch up with Jan Nepomniachtchi. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the Berlin defense. If you want to see some other games that we have covered so far here on my YouTube chess channel, check out our coverage. Here are some games that we have analyzed before. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you with some more videos. And what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.